What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So with every new Pokemon game that's been released, one of the most exciting things to do as a Pokemon fan is deciding what your team is going to be for your first playthrough. Some people like to carefully construct their teams beforehand, and others like me just like to catch whatever cool creature walks in front of them as they're playing the game. With that said though, it's become sort of a tradition in the PokeTuber community to make a video letting everyone know what your team is going to look like. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Now, normally I wouldn't make a video like this early, but given that we already know that these games are only going to feature Kanto Pokemon, it seemed like a good a time as any. So, why don't we just go ahead and check out my team for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Alright, the first Pokemon on my team is obviously going to be the easiest because it's going to be a starter Pokemon, and it's obviously going to be even easier than in regular games because we really only have the choice of two in these games, Pikachu or Eevee, depending on which one I decide to play. Now honestly, I was at a complete loss as to which version of the game I was going to play first, but when it came out that your starter Pokemon that you get, either Pikachu or Eevee, will not be able to evolve, I decided to ultimately go with Let's Go Pikachu and have Pikachu be the first Pokemon on my team. Now, I have a few reasons why I decided to go with Pikachu. Number one, Pokemon Yellow was the very first Pokemon game I played, so playing a remake of Pokemon Yellow with Pikachu as my starter obviously has a lot of nostalgic value to it, but on top of that, it really just came down to not being able to evolve my Pokemon. Naturally, obviously, I would love to evolve my starter Pokemon, but I don't exactly want to just chuck it in the PC box either just because it can't evolve, so given that I can't evolve either one, I just decided to go with Pikachu just because I feel like Pikachu is the better choice for me if I'm going to have an unevolved Pokemon rather than Eevee. Don't worry though, I still love Eevee, I still think it's amazing, I just think this combined with the nostalgic value of this Pokemon Yellow reimagining in HD for me personally kinda tips the scales in favor of Pikachu. Now next up after that, with this being a Pokemon Yellow remake and the fact that there's so much Pokemon Go integration, it's very likely that we will also be able to get all three of the regular Kanto starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Now obviously it would be very easy and it's very tempting to just have all three of them on my team, but that wouldn't make for a very exciting video, and I mean, as fun as it would be to play through, it probably wouldn't make for a very exciting first team. So I've decided to just go with one of the three here. And in case you didn't know, my favorite Kanto starter by a small margin is Squirtle, so I am going to be going with Blastoise for my second Pokemon on my team. Now when it comes down to why I'm picking Blastoise over the other two, it really comes down to its water typing. It's always seemed to be the case for me that in every Pokemon game, the water starter is by far the coolest water Pokemon, and for me, most of the time, unless there is another starter that's just so much cooler than the water starter, I usually go with the water starter just because most of the time, that is the coolest water Pokemon out there. And having a cool water Pokemon has always been crucial for me because obviously for the most part up until Sun and Moon, you had to have a water Pokemon to be able to use Swift, and so it always became an integral part of your team to have a water Pokemon who could know Swift. And so you obviously want them to be a cool member since they're so crucial, and personally the water starters for the most part always ended up being that Pokemon, so in this case Blastoise is going to be that Pokemon for me. My third Pokemon is another Pokemon Yellow staple, and that would be Nitto King. If any of you out there played Pokemon Yellow, you would know that it's practically a requirement that you have got to capture one of the two Nidorans in order to be able to beat Brock, because you're not going to beat it with Pikachu by itself, or you're not going to beat it with a Pidgey, or a Rattata, or a Caterpie, or any of the other early Pokemon that you can find by the time you get to Pewter City. So given this situation, Nidoran Male was always my go-to so I could level it up to level 12 and get that double kick so I could finally beat Brock, and by the time it got to Nitto King, I was just ecstatic because Nitto King is also just such a cool Pokemon in general. It's got an amazing design. You can level it up and get it fully evolved really early on in the game because Nidoran evolves into Nidorino at level 16, and then you can instantly use a Moonstone that you find at Mount Moon to get it to evolve into Nitto King right away, which as a kid was always really cool, so I just have a ton of fond memories of Nitto King. Plus, like I said, it's just really cool in general, and it actually has a really wide and diverse move pool, which always comes in really handy for the later parts of the game. Also, it seems like the Nidoran family in other games besides the Kanto-based games they always seem to be basically non-existent. You can never really find them in the wild anywhere else but in the Kanto games, so whenever I do play through a Kanto game, I always gotta have Nitto King on my team. My fourth pick is a Pokemon I've never really had the chance to use on a playthrough, but I always really wanted to every time I played through a Kanto game, and that would be Alakazam. Now, I always really liked Alakazam because of the way Blue used it, and battling against him, it seemed like a really cool Pokemon, but obviously in the earlier days of Pokemon, in the Yellow, Red, Blue era, and the Fire Red and Leaf Green era, it was really hard to get an Alakazam because you had to trade Kadabra to get it, and in order to do that, you had to have a link cable of some kind, which was hard to get as a kid because they cost money, and B, you had to have a friend with you that had another copy of the game that was willing to trade you because the internet and internet trading wasn't a thing at that time. So getting Pokemon to evolve via trade was very hard, and so I was never able to have an Alakazam on my team. And now that the internet is a thing, and now that I am an adult who can go out and find someone to trade me, even if they don't want to, I think it's now time to finally get the experience of having Alakazam on my team, and I'm personally really excited for it. Now, the fifth Pokemon on my team is a Pokemon that I am pretty sure I'll be able to get, but I can't say for certain just because it's a Pokemon that's often used as a version exclusive, and that would be Arcanine. Now, like I said, I don't want to have all of the starters on my team, but obviously I'm going to need a fire type, and honestly, Arcanine is one of the coolest fire types of any Pokemon region. Once again, this is kind of another case of seeing Blue use this Pokemon and just thinking it's so cool just because of the way he used it when I first kind of experienced that battle and that interaction as a kid when I first played Pokemon Yellow. So that always really made Arcanine very appealing to me, and even though I have used it before on other teams in the past, I'm really excited to be able to use it in Kanto because it's just, like I said, just such a cool Pokemon in general and a very strong Pokemon at that. But if Growlithe and Arcanine is an exclusive to Let's Go Eevee, I obviously will need to pick something else, but I'm still going to stay with the fire theme, so at that point I will pick Charmander, and then eventually Charizard, or possibly its other exclusive counterpart, Vulpix, and then Ninetales, because I used an Alolan Ninetales in Ultra Sun, and I really had a lot of fun with it, so it would be fun to use the regular Ninetales, which I've also never used on a team before either. And the last Pokemon for my team is yet another Pokemon I've never used in an actual playthrough before, and that would be Dragonite. Now, obviously, it makes sense why I never used it in a Kanto playthrough, because it's a very rare Pokemon in the Kanto region and just in general, so it makes getting it hard, but also when you are able to find it, it's not until late in the game when you already have your teams established. So most of the time for me, I didn't want to bother grinding it and catching it up to the rest of my team in order to actually use it. But this time is different. This time, Dragonite is definitely going to be a part of my team the second I can find a Dratini. So with that being said, one way or another, I am going to get Dratini. I'm going to grind it if I have to, and I'm going to make it into a Dragonite because Dragonite is an awesome Pokemon, and I'm just so excited to be able to use it in Kanto. So that is my team of 6. However, I did want to go over a couple of backup Pokemon that I might consider, or that I at least considered for this team, that might make their way into my team for at least a little bit of time in some way, shape, or form. The first Pokemon on this list would be Pidgeot, because I have always, every time I've played a Kanto game, caught Pidgey and put Pidgeot on my team. I think Pidgeot's a great Pokemon. It's a great early Pokemon that you can catch right at the start of the game, so it's a really easy choice that I've always gone with, kind of like my go-to first catch of the game whenever I play Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire Red, whatever. Another Pokemon that I always catch whenever I play these Kanto/Johto games is Snorlax, because, I mean, it's Snorlax, it's a tank, it can also learn a wide variety of moves, much like Nitto King, so Snorlax is always a great Pokemon to have, so he might make his way onto my team in some way, shape, or form. And then obviously, like I said, Charizard and or Vulpix, those guys are going to be the understudies, if you will, to Arcanine if I'm not able to catch Arcanine. So overall, there's actually a lot of really good choices in Kanto. You don't really think of it that way because it's kind of like the vanilla region, but there are a lot of really cool Pokemon to choose from when you're building a team. And there we have it, everybody. Now, while it's always possible that I could change my mind on one or two of these as I'm playing the game, I'm pretty sure this is the team I'm going to go with because I love all of these Pokemon, and like I mentioned, some of them I haven't even used in a playthrough before, so I'm really excited to try them out. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know in the comments below which version of the game you're getting and what your team is going to look like for your first playthrough. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe because I upload Pokemon content all the time and there's new stuff coming out every week. I'm sure you'll enjoy it and you won't regret it. Anyways though, with all of that being said, I will be back with another video very, very soon. So until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.